All right, guys, so for this lesson, we're learning about the equation of a circle. You might see this often in future classes. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared, on the outside is equal to r squared, or the radius squared. So this is the equation of a circle if we were to graph it on a grid on an xy plane, or it's also called a Cartesian plane. So the variables h, k are our coordinates for the center of the circle. So for example, if we have a plane and the circle is right at the middle, it's right where they intersect, well, that coordinate is 0, 0. In this case, h and k would be 0, 0. Okay. If the center was on the coordinate 1, 1, so 1, 1, h and k would be 1 and 1, right? So it just tells us where the center is, and then r is the radius, how far the circle extends around that center point. So the only thing required to learn in this lesson is writing this specific equation. So you'll see this in a few different forms. So you'll be given, let's say, a center, and let's say the center is 5, 3, and they give you the radius 2. So all you have to do is plug these values into the equation. So you have to say, hey, x minus, and then h is 5 squared plus y minus k, which is 3 squared, is equal to the radius squared, 2 squared. Okay, that's it. Pretty easy, right? You might see other examples. Okay, let's say I have a circle that goes, that crosses like that, something like that. Hard to draw that without a graph. But so first of all, you'd have to look at your center, okay, and my center right here is 1, 1. So center, or HK is equal to 1, 1. And then you have to kind of look at your radius, which kind of ignore how ugly the circle is, but I'm just going to say that this circle comes up about 2. So you count how far away the edge of the circle is, and the easiest way to see that is the ones that are either directly, the parts of the circle that are directly above and below the point, and or directly next to the point. Okay, so if I were to count and say, okay, the circle goes up 1, 2 points because the edge is right here at 3 on my y-axis and 3 right here on my x-axis. So it goes up 2 and it goes over 2. So that means that my radius is 2. Right? So then you use that to plug those values into the equation, which you'd plug in 1 for h, 1 for k, and 2 for r. Also, for your homework, you might be given the center and a point on a circle. So I think this might be an example on your homework. So I'm going to give you guys a center, let's see, the center of 9, 10. So the center is your HK. And then it says, hey, there's a point on the circle, on the edge of the circle, and that point is 7, 4. So I know that the center is going to be at 9, 10, and the edge of the circle is going to be somewhere. It's going to cross 7, 4. So this is what I do. I am going to plug this value in for the center. This is my HK, right? My HK, or HK. And this is a point in the circle. Well, guess what? That's what XY represents, are all the points that circle passes, the edge of the circle crosses. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug this in for my XY right there, and then I can find my radius. My X, let's say 7 is X, 7 minus, and then my center is 9 squared, plus Y, which is 4, minus my H, which is 10 squared, is equal to the radius squared, and we don't know what the radius is, but we're going to solve for R. And we want to find the equation of this circle. So we want to find the general equation. So that means we need to solve for the radius. So 7 minus 9 is -2. -2 squared plus 4 minus 10 is -6. -6 squared is equal to r squared. Well, -2 times -2 is 4. plus negative 6 times negative 6 is 36 is equal to r squared. So I know r squared equals 36 plus 4, which is 40. So now I still want to leave r alone, and there's still a squared there, so I'm going to do the opposite and square root both sides. So that gives me the square root of 40. And you can just leave it as a square root, that's fine. Okay, so I know what my r is. Now I'm just going to put the equation of a circle without these 2 points, because this is just an example of one point that crosses that circle. We want to keep it general with x and y because there are many points that land on that circle. So I'm just going to put it back to that general formula, now having my r, my radius. So I know, let me put this off to the side, radius equals square root of 40. Let's write that as the equation, but this is definitely part of the permanent equation, so I'm going to leave it as x minus 9, because that's h squared, plus y minus 10 squared is equal to the square root of 40 squared, which is just 40, so you could leave it as the square root of 40 squared or simplify it to 40 because square root of 40 is your radius. There is also another form of using this formula, using this equation of a circle. So your homework might give you the circumference or the area of the circle, and have you find the rest of the equation of the circle. So I'm just as a reminder, I'm going to write down circumference equals pi times the diameter, or 2 pi r, right? And then the area is equal to pi r squared. Okay, I'm going to use an example where the center is negative 1, 4, and then it gives me the circumference. Let me write this as center so we won't confuse that. Center is negative 1, 4, and then the circumference, capital C, is equal to 6 pi. Okay, that means that the distance around the circle is 6 pi. So I am going to use this to find the diameter and radius. So 6 pi, if pi is still in my circumference formula, then I know d must be 6. So the diameter must equal 6, which means the radius must equal half of that, which is 3. Right, because the radius is half of the diameter. So now I'm just going to use what I have to write my formula. So my formula would be x, and since it's minus h and this is a negative 1, so it'd be like writing minus negative 1, which in turn turns into positive 1 or plus 1, right? So since the formula is already minus, this negative 1 makes it plus. So squared plus y minus, and then that's positive 4, so it stays that way, squared equals 3 squared, okay? Easy, that's how you found your radius, and that is your main formula. That's all you need to do is write the equation of a circle, and that's the equation of this circle with the radius 6 pi and the center negative 1, 4. You do the same thing to find the equation of the circle given the area. You just have to solve for the radius. Let's do one more example of you being given the equation of the circle and then having to just identify the center and radius. So let's say my equation is x minus 5 squared plus y minus 1 squared is equal to 64. Okay, so look at this equation and think, okay, what's my center? Okay, HK is given. My center points are given. So I need to just write them down. Since this is minus 5 and minus 1, well, these are positive, right? So my center will be 5, 1. So the center of the circle lands on the coordinate 5, 1 on a graph. And then r squared is equal to 64. R squared is equal to 64. So to find just the radius alone, I need to find the square root of 64, right? And the square root of 64 is 8. So the radius is equal to 8. This is all you really need to know for the equation of the circle. These are all the different types of problems that your homework will require you to solve, just using this equation or finding the equation for the circle given the information that they give you, okay? So if you have any questions, remember, visit my office hours and have a happy last week of school.